Teachers at Reddit, what's the most trashy NSFW story you heard from your students about their parents? A young teen boy who said the only math he needs to know is how to weigh drugs correctly to be like his dad. That made me sad. That was in a school in a crappy part of London 5 years back. My mom works at home. Her clients come to visit her there. Turns out she was a sex worker and was operating out of the bedroom while her oldest child watched the younger ones in the living room. My mother is a teacher and she came home one day and told me a story about how in a kindergarten class they were seeing if a plant would grow better in the sunlight or in the dark. One kid said that the plant in the dark would grow better, and when they asked him why, he said, "My parents grow big plants in the closet." As it turns out, the parents were illegally growing marijuana. When I was a senior in high school, we did a little project with kindergartners. Before we started, the teacher asks everyone how their weekend was, and one of the students tells the room about this cool game his uncle took him to where they get chickens to fight each other. 5 minutes later the principal takes him away. That was 10 years ago. I have no clue what happened afterwards. Not a teacher, but as a student in the 5th grade, our teacher told us that adults who do drugs can sometimes become so addicted they are not able to pay for their house and then they lose the house. A classmate raised her hand and said, "That's what happened to my dad." The teacher responded, "Oh Christy honey, that wasn't because he was on drugs. He just had a hard time with the bills." Christy's response, "No, he was on drugs." Several seconds of silence were followed by the continuation of the math lesson. My cousin, who's a teacher, told me this one. A few years ago she was teaching at a summer school for underprivileged kids to keep them off the streets and out of trouble. One day, one of the younger girls, 7 or 8 years old, was crying. So she naturally went up and asked her, "What's wrong? Miss, that boy over there keeps saying my mum's a prostitute." "Don't listen to him. He's making it up just to be mean." "No miss, she is a prostitute. But he doesn't have to keep saying it." Needless to say, she was gobsmacked. Just like everyone else, she tells the story too. I assigned an assignment where students had to select a piece of music that they thought conveyed mourning or sadness. They then had to write a couple sentences on it explaining how it conveyed that emotion. One of my students misunderstood the assignment and proceeded to write 2 pages about how the song conveys sadness because it reminds them about their drug addict mother who left them and has been in and out of their life because she keeps choosing the drugs over the kids. It was really sad. This kid isn't a great student, and it was sobering to see what is affecting them at home to influence their behavior at school. Edit. Affect versus effect. Well, I had a student with 17 half siblings, 8 on mom's side, 9 on dad's, none of which were full siblings. Age range was something like 45 down to 3 months. I gave a lesson about methamphetamine in a health class I was teaching. I had little anonymous exit slips for kids to fill out with lingering questions and feedback. One kid wrote, "Now I understand why my stepdad acts the way he does, comma." My mom was a teacher and a 4th grader came up to her when it was time for parent-teacher meetings. "Kid, I just wanted to tell you that my mom is kind of weird." "My mom, everybody's a little weird. I'm sure she'll be fine." "Kid, she has her nipples pierced and wears a chain between them." And my mom said it was obvious. My wife's is a teacher, but I was there for this event. Basically, I was chaperoning a field trip for her class and was there for student drop-off. One of the moms came into the room wearing a sweatsuit with the top unzipped and lingerie under it. Not the ambiguous is it or isn't lingerie, but see-through mesh. I can see her breasts and nipples clearly. Lingerie. I volunteered at my son's preschool. The first day each kid was asked to say something about themselves. For example, my son said he likes basketball. The next boy said, "My older sister has loose morals." The teacher asks the lad if he is sure. Not only is he sure, but his mom is taking her to see Dr. Jones about it. When his mom gets him, she explained that Dr. Jones is a dentist. This boy's sister has loose molars. In grade 3, my son told his teacher one Monday that his dad was doing joints all weekend, and he helped. Of course, the teacher asked him to explain himself. "You know, doing joints. It was really messy though, and mommy told him I shouldn't help." Teacher continues questioning, and finally figured out that my joints were made of wood. I had been doing some woodworking that weekend, and we were joining 2 pieces of wood with a biscuit joiner, and he helped me with the glue up, which somehow in an 8-year-old's mind became doing joints. Parent-teacher night was pretty hilarious. Slightly off prompt. After an assembly and football game one night there was a student staying after everyone had left. My principal went to talk to him and discovered that his mom had not arrived to pick him up, and they got her on the phone. My principal reports that the mom was overheard yelling at her son, "I told you not to go. This is my night to go to the casino. You can just wait US there." My principal and the student report that the mom was clearly intoxicated. My principal ended up taking the student home in their private vehicle around midnight. That student went on to be arrested for breaking and entering throughout the community. The kicker? The student got a taste for band when our school renovated the cafeteria and stored all of the non-perishables in a portable. He would break in just to get something to eat because there was no food at home. I believe that this student remains incarcerated at this time. I'm not a teacher, but in my sophomore year of high school I passed by a girl and all I heard her say was "me and my dad had sex last night." A girl at my old high school would duck random people under the stairs. She got caught. She was expelled. The guy was not. I went to a Christian private academy. The double standards were ridiculous. Middle son informed his kindergarten teacher that I was growing grass in the house. I was like lawn grass, not marijuana, in a large tray for my guinea pigs. I got to meet a cop and a social worker. We were all very amused. My co-worker had a student who brought a ball gag in his backpack. He had no idea what it was. She was grateful the parent's answering machine picked up instead of having a conversation. She simply said, common name of kid, brought something in his backpack that he probably had no permission to bring. I'm a daycare teacher. New kid, 4 years old, talking to me as I'm getting snacks ready. She mentions that she misses her mom. Dad dropped her off and I hadn't met mom. Me, is mom at work? 4yo, no. Me, no. Where is she? 4yo casually shrugs, oh, you know, doing drugs. Then a few weeks later she's talking to me again. 4yo, I have a sister. She's 5. Me, oh. Does she live with you and dad or with your mom? 4yo, she used to live with mom. Then mom called CPS to take her away. Kind of reversed from what you are asking. But I had a teacher who had 4 different last names in 4 years. Each new school year she had a new last name. I had her 3 of the 4 years. I thought the name changes were odd at the time, but didn't fully compute why they happened. 3 years after high school I had just turned 21 and I was at a local bar and she was singing karaoke and she was hammered. When she was done singing I yelled hell yes Mrs. Shepherd and she walked over to me and told me she just got married and her name was now something else, which I don't remember. TL. Doctor, I had a teacher who was married to at least 4 different guys in 7 years. Not a teacher, but I bet my old teacher would place this here. Circa 1993. A classmate in 3rd grade. She was tragically and blatantly neglected by her family and severely behind in school, yet had the biggest heart ever. She smelled terrible, was always filthy, and could barely read. We all knew she had a life and still always tried to be decent to her. It was Halloween and as per usual, all the kids were bringing in candy to hand out, including our not so fortunate classmate, which was a shocker to most of us as we were aware of her family's financial state. So we all finish up with passing out our candy and we're allowed to enjoy some of it, including the milk duds our classmate so graciously shared. And then she proclaimed, "Oh yeah, me and my uncle really lucked out while dumpster diving this week when we found these." I don't remember seeing much of her after that. Fast forward to maybe 3 years later. Happened to see the old classmate at the local Halloween parade, wearing a nice, clean, warm coat, looking very happy and very healthy, and she introduced me to her foster family. I was pretty happy for that kid, being a kid myself, cause her parents sucked. My girlfriend is a primary school teacher who had a child tell her just before Christmas that his dad grows Christmas trees in the spare bedroom. Impressive to fit a Christmas tree orchard in the house. Can we do trashy stories about teachers too? Young married male teacher at my daughter's school was cruising dating site He found an interesting match which turned out to be a phony profile created by a couple of grade 8 girls in same school. Yes, he sent nude pics. Cops got involved and confiscated girl's phone. Not a teacher, but heard this story from a friend who is. One kid's mom was a hooker and she used to make her son wait outside the house when she had clients over. She came to visit the school one time all high on something that gave her nervous energy and a case of the twitches. She had super colorful long fingernails, tight little top and a short skirt. That being said, another time she offered to volunteer to help out in the class so she couldn't be all bad. I work at a historical village. We were fixing things while tours were going on one day in a historical hotel. A room had iron bars to block the deck, and a maid's outfit next to the wall. The old bed was chained together and I was zip tying a pipe to the wall. A kid shouted, "Hey, that almost looks like my mom's special room." He said, "Yeah, the door has bars in front of it. My mom has clothes just like maid's outfit, that she always keeps the old bed chained together and always has a zip tie on the dresser." His friend shouted out what he's really saying is he has a 6-room in his basement. My mum worked in a middle school and there was this mother who would bring her children to school on one of those mobility scooters. That's not trashy obviously. Some people need them. She was a big lady. She was known to be on drugs. A bit rough, chatty, rude. Her children misbehaved constantly and were in special programs at the school. One day one of her children said their mum had gotten into a fight with a Pikeya slang term for gypsy. The mum actually died the next day. The dad overdosed a year later. This story went from trashy to sad. From what I know, the children are doing alright now though. I once taught a girl, 9 at the time, who was absent on the Monday and when back on the Tuesday told me she had been sick from drinking mum's Ossa special drinks. After some digging, we discovered her stepdad, a known addict, had tried to commit suicide on the Friday evening, failed, and then had a second lease on life, which gave him the idea to host an impromptu all-night party on the Saturday. Girl and younger sister were apparently as much part of the party as everyone else, and had essentially hoovered up all of the half-finished booze they found left unattended and got smashed. Hence the hangover on the Monday. Bonus: the mother has since left the stepdad and is now dating her cousin. He sometimes arrives to pick up the children without a shirt on. Not a teacher, but I'm sure there are teachers out there who tell this story of me. Most of this is a retelling from my mom though, as I don't remember it much. In elementary school, not sure what grade age, we had dad come in to talk about drugs and alcohol. Now I was a very naive child, my own doing, and after the meeting I went to my teacher bawling because I thought my mom was an alcoholic and was driving us to school drunk every day because she would always have a very large closed cup of what she called an adult drink. Said teacher took me to the principal's office and they called in my mom. At this point the school had already alternate authorities. No clue if it was cops or CPS, I just know some sort of authority was there to monitor. My mom comes in and they sit her down and bring up what I told her and said that they needed to open an investigation. My mom just starts hysterically laughing and they all get super pissed off. She finally gets out that it's coffee. I ratted out what I thought was my alcoholic mom for her morning coffee habit. After minor digging they let her go, and now it's a funny story my mom tells to embarrass me. Funny one: I was reading aloud to first graders a book with the word winch in it and a little girl pipes up. That's what my dad calls my mom. Not a teacher, but I had a friend in 9th grade who would bring in condoms daily. One day I asked him, out of curiosity, where did he get those from, considering he was very young then. He said they belonged to his father and he had been stealing them from his father's locker all that time. Not a teacher, but a former HS student. Parents of my classmate were mad at him to the point where they said you can find someplace else to live then for not sharing his girlfriend with his older brother. Last I saw, the two of them got married and his family was not at the wedding. A student in year 11 was spot roasted in the park whilst I was working there by 2 other students. Rumors started going round the school about it and a teen pregnancy. Parents of the girl, when brought in to discuss it, mother starts screaming at the girl that she was a little slut, rather than trying to help her, leaves in a hissy fit. I dated a girl who worked at a daycare. She came home all upset one day and told me this story. They'd caught a little boy who had taken off his belt and wrapped it around his arm. When they asked him what he was doing, he started slapping his arm and said he was looking for a good one. He was pantomiming his parents' search for a good vein in which to inject drugs. Had one student that was extremely smart, but she did have problems with ADHD. The mother would regularly sell her daughter's prescription medication rather than giving it to her daughter. Had another parent, when confronted about her child stealing a pair of shoes, flatly stated, "Who wouldn't steal a pair of shoes that were just sitting on the bench with no one watching them?" He just couldn't process that someone might look at the shoes and not take them. I had a kid. His dad started giving him booze around 8, smoking weed with him around 10, and at 13 they smoked some crack together. Mum was over this it, so she split and married another dude. This guy was a raging alcoholic piece of it. One evening he rolls into the living room with a 12 gauge, puts it in his mouth and rapidly removes the back of his head with some 00 buckshot. He was 14. His sister 12, and they were sitting on the couch eating dinner. Kid still loves his mama. I think she makes poor decisions. That's quite a specific fetish you're trying to get fulfilled. OP. I had a student once whose dad was cheating on his mom, and the mom, dad and mistress lived in the same house with 5-6 kids. Also, the kid was special needs too and never showered. Had a girl say on the first day that she was named after her dad's ex because her mom was tired of seeing the ex's name tattooed on her dad's chest and wanted to associate the tattoo with something else. I was the student, middle school. Told my buddy that I used my dad's mustache trimmer to trim my pubes. He proceeded to tell our super sexy gym coach, and she cannot stop laughing. Fast forward to parent-teacher review day, or whatever the duck it was called, and there's my dad trying to hit on the sexy gym teacher. To no avail. She just kept looking at me and his mustache. Strangest feeling ever. Not a teacher, but worked in a school during college. One girl told me that her parents wanted to move to Florida, so I asked if she wanted to or had ever been. She said no and said her parents went to visit and see if there was a place they liked. So I asked her when did her parents go and what did they think find. He said, "No, they are there now and have been for 2 weeks. Oh, so who's watching you while they're away?" She said, "Nobody, I'm home alone." This was an 11-year-old girl. My student, 6, is cared for by his grandma. His grandma had a kid 1 year after he was born, so his uncle is younger than him. Grandma wants the uncle, 5, to be the man of the house, and my student says his uncle is in charge of discipline. This takes the form of the two of them always beating the it out of each other and the grandma condoning it. Well, saying the uncle is always right, and actively tells him to beat his nephew. My student. This is to the extent that my student has come to school with a concussion and vomited during class. Yes, services have been notified. Nothing has come of it yet. Not a teacher, but I can probably put this story here. When I was a little kid in 5th grade, my teachers made us do this thing where we got into a big circle and we had to share something that happened the previous day. My dad and I got into a minor accident at McDonald's. But my parents ended up getting into a big fight when my mom found out. Things like divorce and threats of leaving were thrown around as per usual. When it was my turn to share, I try to opt out, but my teachers make me say something. I say something to the effect of my dad got into a car accident and my parents are fighting while I'm very clearly trying not to cry. Some kid, who probably wasn't even listening and talking to friends, just so happens to laugh after. I vividly remember yelling, "It's not funny, my parents are going to get divorced," and breaking out into a rich fit. The teacher awkwardly asks the person beside me to keep up the circle. Not too bad, but a little girl was named Hennessy. Said it was daddy's favorite drink. I had a middle school student who told me about her mom's infected belly button. Sounded really awful. I teach English as a second language in Asia. One day a younger student of mine said, "Teacher, my uncle, so much trouble. Why? He has girl underwear in so many pictures." I was just like, ooh. One of my students described the time in 7th grade where he ran into his science teacher at his house, coming out of his dad's room. Said he didn't say another word in that class for the rest of the year. Mom used the kid as a human shield when she was in a shootout with cops. Another lost her license for being drunk again. So many dads missing in jail with new high school age girlfriends. It's disgusting. A kid at my school excitedly told his classmates about prostitutes, their role in society, and how if they annoy you, you can whack them. He was 8. His dad is a high-ranking Hells Angel and currently in jail. He'd gone for a jail visit and had a great chat to dad and his mates. Substitute here. Just had a 2nd grader tell me he and his father were camping when he was 4. He was in a separate tent and rolled into his dad's tent while he was sleeping. His dad's tent was too close to the campfire and it caught fire. When his dad was trying to get out, he tripped and fell 400 feet over a cliff and died. What a sad and horrifying story, and filled with detail. Checked in with the classroom teacher and apparently he is a bit of a storyteller. His dad is alive and well. Obligatory not a teacher and slightly off topic. Had a friend who was a teacher of young children. She had a mother come to her on the first day and tell her son wasn't potty trained. So if he needed to pee, my friend would have to hold his D for him. My friend explained that was inappropriate and she wouldn't be able to do that. Friend thought that was the end of it. But the next day, the mother comes back with a pair of chopsticks and tells my friend that seeing as she can't hold her son's D with her hands, she could use the chopsticks to hold it and just keep the chopsticks in her desk drawer throughout the day. 1. Yuck. 2. WTF.